I want to thank the Road Haulage Association and the Gardaí for their statements. I think there's a kind of a picture emerging that the question of the responsibility of employers, in relation to the drivers of their vehicles. At the moment, there is no legislation that requires these kind of checks to be made. We had Bus Éireann and Dublin Bus in here, and they were saying that they can't, because there's no legislation, they can't get an agreement to have these kind of checks. And the only areas where it seems to work is on the railways, and I think on the airlines. I mean, there is fairly stringent testing in airline crews, and indeed, despite that, sometimes you'll get things go wrong. But the on the question of the cost, and I mean, I accept there's going to be a cost involved. I mean, safety, there is a price, there is a cost for safety as well. But I think if you don't have it, you could have even higher costs. If there was an accident, the driver himself could be, there could be a fatality, the vehicles could be in danger, and indeed the travelling public. And most people would say that, there is an employer would have a duty of care to his staff who are driving trucks, or whether they're driving buses or any other vehicle, and that that duty of care could extend to ensuring that the person who is driving the vehicle would be free from a level of intoxicants or drugs that would impair their capacity to drive the vehicle. Indeed, it's not just the Road Haulage Association. We had the Automobile Association and Conor Faulkner saying that he didn't think there was a great enthusiasm among the motorists for random drug testing, because a lot of people, are on some kind of medication of one kind or another for various ailments, and there would be a fear that somebody would be stopped and maybe be fined or lose penalty points because of that. But and I think it's important that at this pre-legislative stage of this bill that we sort of tease all these things out, But I accepted that the Gardaí were saying that at the moment there is roadside drug testing going on, and I'd just like to know what is the level, to what extent are roadside drug tests being carried out by the Gardaí, in that respect. But on the question of the costs involved, I think there's a cost involved if you don't have these kind of tests.
Okay, anyone want to?
Deputy, I don't disagree with you, but I represent a sector, to liken Bus Éireann with the small and medium-sized sector, it's difficult to put the two in the same pot. But we won't shun our responsibilities, and we haven't done to date. And there is a duty of care, of course there is, on any employee, and we have taken our duty of care seriously to date. And as I said in my earlier introduction, I don't see where else it happens, and in this one instance, I don't see this being the factor that will resolve all our problems. Relative to the roadside inspections, I can assure you that there are quite a lot of roadside inspections for commercial vehicles today, in joint agency with the Garda Síochána and the Road Safety Authority. It's become ever more prevalent on our roadsides now, and we as an organisation have 100% wholeheartedly agreed with that programme, and we've worked with both organisations to, if you want to call it, tidy up our act in that sector. For years, we would have had problems with badly maintained equipment, but we're talking here years ago now. We have a very, very modern fleet in this country, very modern vehicles, and when it comes to road safety, we have and do to date invest heavily in the most safety, environmentally friendly vehicles possibly that you can buy in the market today. There's no more modern fleet in Europe than there is the Irish fleet. On the situation with the responsibility, I have to say, and you have to take into consideration the nature of the transport industry. It's a mobile industry. Your employees do not work from the same base all the time. So do you victimise then an employee working from a specific site who you may feel you randomly test for drugs or alcohol at some stage, but if that employee works from an alternate site, which happens regularly, as I've stated already, the employee then feels victimised. But it's not so much that even, it's the consequence down the line of what happens if there is a problem. The employee then, we don't have clarity who picks up the problem at the end of the day, and we need that clarity.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment?
Just going back to the Deputy's point in terms of the roadside screening, as you know, at the moment under the current legislation, all we can do is carry out these field impairment tests, and they start in November. So they're the walking the straight line, you know, finger on the nose, look at pupils. It's those sort of tests we carry out at the moment. In terms of drug driving, I think you had a presentation already from Professor Cusick in the Medical Bureau of Road Safety, and he would have given you examples about the samples that they receive at the Medical Bureau. So where guards form the opinion the person is intoxicated, and an analysis of those samples would show that there's a sizable proportion of people with drugs in their system. So what we want to try and do is be able to screen people better at the side of the road. It's quite a complex technology. Deputy Ellis touched it earlier on as well in terms of how many, you know, drugs will this equipment be able to test for, you know, and there are variations out there. That's the work is going on at the moment by the Medical Bureau, who will supply the Guard with the equipment in the end to help us enforce the legislation, and it will be important. Guards are certainly quite good at recognising the signs of intoxication, and that is proven by the samples that go to the Medical Bureau in terms of the presence of drugs. What's happening in this legislation is, you know, is trying to get to a point where we don't always have to show the full impairment for people. At the moment, if somebody has drugs in their system as opposed to alcohol, we're having to show that the person has drugs in their system and it has impaired their driving. We certainly want to get to a situation where we have the illicit drugs that are out there, that when people are detected with those, that automatically you're in a position that you committed an offence. We want to stop people driving with illicit drugs in their system. Prescribed medicines, there are guidelines issued in relation to those, and I think everybody can manage those with the help of the pharmacists, the doctors, and the person whom is prescribed. You know, that can be managed quite well. We certainly haven't had issues over the years of people complaining that they've been arrested for impaired driving because they were on prescription medicines. That has never been an issue that's been brought to our attention at any stage, so we certainly wouldn't have any fears in that. But the equipment and technology for screening people at the side of the road will be important, will be critical, but it's much more difficult to tie down than alcohol because of the range of drugs that are out there.